All right, so welcome to part four. Super late to the party, but as you all already know, the war already popped off. And just like Ukraine, the West bit off more than it can chew. So Iran is lighting their asses up and are in position to cause West a lot of economic pain. And this is not to say that Iran is not taking a beating too. They are, but we see white supremacist terrorism raining down on Tehran. You know, they're bombing schools, bombing little girls at school, trying to blame it on Iran when we know and now have evidence that it was a Tomahawk missile that hit the school. But you know, Trump's still blaming Iran for that. They're bombing residential areas. They're bombing hospitals. What we have is the complete IDFication of the United States Armed Forces. So, and we have just the United States just going around the world creating terror and destruction for the purposes of stealing other people's shit. It's like these people have a psychological need to rule over other people, but the Iranians are not having it, and the paper tiger U.S. military is looking even more paper tigery. Okay, but with this garbage air defense systems, which the Iranians are penetrating with ease, I can't show how Tel Aviv is being turned into a moonscape right now because YouTube censorship, and our PDF Steam rulers are really doing their best to hide how much they're losing this conflict. But let's get into it. This is day 13 still. So let's monitor the reaction from over the past couple weeks on this topic. So first, let's actually start with Trump and his declaration of war. Let's hear what he has to say.
Their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland. Just imagine how emboldened this regime would be if they ever had and actually were armed with nuclear weapons as a means to deliver their message. For these reasons, the United States military has undertaken a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. And we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple message. They will never have a nuclear weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. I built and rebuilt our military in my first administration, and there is no military on earth even close to its power, strength, or sophistication. I'm doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission. We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that with his help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world, and they will prevail. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or in the alternative, face certain death. So, lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death.
Wow, Trump talking big shit. So, just glazing the U.S. military as if they're the greatest fighting force on the planet, and then just basically telling the Iranians, hey, bend the knee. Bend the knee to white supremacy. We rule you. We will tell you who's in charge of that geographical space. And the Iranians are like, fuck you. All right. So now, before we even go further, let's listen to what Trump said on the campaign trail, because he was saying something. He was speaking in a totally different tone. So let's listen to what he had to say here.
His strength, blood, and treasure, chasing monsters and phantoms overseas. In addition, there must also be a complete commitment to dismantling the entire globalist neocon establishment that is perpetually dragging us into endless wars, pretending to fight for freedom and democracy abroad. We should have never gone into the Middle East. We should have never gone into the Middle East. Under my leadership, we will turn the page. Ever one of those foolish, stupid days of never-ending wars. We're rebuilding our military stronger than ever before, and we are not going to deplete again on stupid, senseless, endless wars. War III has never been closer than it is right now. We need to clean house of all of the warmongers and America last globalists. I am the president who delivers peace. I was the first president in decades who didn't start a war. And the worst, most incompetent, most corrupt president in history is going to drag us into World War III. And this horrible
He's right about that.
Is dragging us toward World War III. We're going to be in World War III soon because I think we would have been good with Iran. I don't want to do anything bad to Iran. Large sections of the Middle East. I mean, look at the death and destruction that's taken place. And none of this would have happened if I were president. Our opponents join with warmongers and neocons to wait.
So y'all get the point. Basically, he ran on America first. He ran on stopping all these wars. He ran on, releasing the Epstein files. And we got absolutely the opposite of everything, which everybody should know. That's what happens with the U.S. presidency. They're not beholden to their campaign promises because they're not beholden to you, the citizen. They're beholden to their donors. Okay. Everybody should be waking up now. Everybody should know this, Republicans, they should see that clear as day now. You know what I mean? I feel like Democrats have a harder time wrapping their heads around this because, they support the Democrats out of fear of Trump, not necessarily because the Democrats deliver any tangibles to them. But anyways, Dr. Mohammed Marandi, I think his name is Mohammed. Oh, Saeed Marandi. Great voice. He's in Iran, and he was on Glenn Deason's show and had some commentary. So I broke it down into two parts. So let's listen to what Dr. Marandi has to say on the ground in Tehran.
For the optics here, as I mentioned before, political mention, it's better to have Israel attack first, and then the U.S. simply helping, Israel's right to exist, or, this kind of narratives. But just my last
But it doesn't really, if anyone is sane and anyone is reasonable and logical, it doesn't help the case. It doesn't to say that, okay, if the Israeli regime, we don't have justification for war, so if the Israeli regime attacks and then we attack, that will give us a justification. It doesn't. It actually does the opposite, because in a sane world, the aggressor would be condemned and marginalized. But they want to join in saying that this is their justification. It's the exact opposite. But that's how logic works for the Epstein class. And that is why the United States has become a threat to the world. It's not just Iran. It's not just Cuba. It's everyone. This is all the rules have been cast aside. The United States expects Russia, China, Iran, BRICS, everyone across the world to abide by the rules, yet they are openly and explicitly now above the law. And that is why governments and ordinary people from top to bottom, they have a role to play. People have to protest. People have to boycott everything American in the supermarkets, anything. Governments have to seek solutions that marginalize the United States. Iran will play its part. If the United States attacks, Iran will hit back hard. It will be bloody. It will be brutal. It will be painful. People like me may not survive, but this is the only thing that you can do. The United States must be forced to back down. Otherwise, if the United States succeeds, there will be nothing stopping this madness.
Well, that's the last question.
Okay, so we'll go to the second clip now.
The Iranian military command is probably not whispering into your ear, but as an Iranian there in Tehran, knee deep in these issues, how do you see the likely, or do you think Iran will just launch at everything at once?
Well, again, I'm just guessing. If this is the Israelis alone, then Iran will focus on battering the regime. But if the United States gets involved, then Iran will do whatever it takes to make sure that the Americans regret attacking Iran. So I would imagine that striking empty bases would not be a priority. They would strike places where it would hurt the most, the maximum suffering. And since all these regimes have been completely complicit, from Qatar to the Emirates, even though these two countries hate each other, they're both American proxies. Qatar was never a supporter of the Palestinian people. Either was Erdogan or anyone else. We see how they're all in the U.S. camp. So Qatar, just like the Emirates, is a possible target, depending on what happens. I don't want to say anything right now because I don't know what's happening. I don't know what the involvement of the United States is and how things will play out. But if there's all-out war, all I can say it will be a regional war. Iran's allies across the region, which are powerful and many, they will engage. The Iranian missile and drone capabilities are second to none in this region by far. They will engage, and there are so many soft targets that the United States cannot defend that can easily be destroyed. You have oil and gas installations everywhere. You have tankers and ships everywhere. And each one of these that are destroyed, shutting the Strait of Hormuz, that's one thing. But if the assets in the Persian Gulf region are destroyed, the oil and gas and the tankers, then even if the Strait of Hormuz is open, it could take years, depending on how long the war goes and how widespread the damage is, depending again on how long the war lasts. it could take years for the oil to go to be exported like it was before. And that would create very, very long-term damage and misery for people across the globe. This is from the Persian Gulf region, from West Asia and the Caucasus combined. It's, if I'm not mistaken, almost 25% of the world's oil comes from this area. Imagine what that will do to the markets. Imagine what that will do to industries. Imagine what that will do to companies, corporations, people at home, ordinary people. It will have a devastating effect from the southern tip of the Americas to the southern tip of Africa to, everywhere, to New Zealand. Everyone will be affected. And this will be the doing of the United States. But until it becomes clearer for me what role the United States is truly playing, I really can't say much more because, again, the claim that this is a joint operation sounds very satanic to me. It sounds to me, and I may be wrong, that the Israeli regime is carrying out this attack, and they're saying it's a joint operation so that the Iranians will attack or hit something that's American, and then the Americans can say that, oh, they struck our target, so we're part of this war now. That's basically what I think is happening. But we have to keep this in mind, Glenn, that, again, the Omani foreign minister went to the United States and was upbeat about the negotiations and explained to people across the world what was happening and how progress had been made. And yet, despite that, just like during the 12th Day War, the United States and supported gave the green light. That part is obvious. But the Israeli regime carried out this blitzkrieg attack.
I think it's a very reasonable hypothesis.
So the point I want to talk about here is the idea that, or not the idea, the fact that the Omanis were really successful in trying to negotiate a de-escalation to this. But the United States, again, use what we call perfidy, and we defined that in part 2 in the Iran coverage, where the U.S. will pretend it's acting in good faith and in good negotiations and then attack during the negotiations. And they did the same thing again here. The West is non-agreement capable. They are not honorable. You cannot trust them. Okay. Now look at my senator in PA, a total Zio zealot, committed Democrat here, and I'm a hard no. My vote on Operation Epic. My vote is Operation Epic Fury. My man is completely owned by the Zio lobby. He does not represent me. Okay. Here's Zachary Foster, another tweet I saw. It says, in addition to supporting an illegal war, you also support eradication of the U.S. Constitution. And I agree with that take. And check out this tweet by Elon Levy. It shows a picture of Tel Aviv being struck by an Iranian missile, apparently. And then listen to the logic here, okay? This is what one Iranian ballistic missile did in Tel Aviv. This is why we won't let them build thousands. Dummy, you started a war so they can't bomb you to destroy their missiles, but now you're getting their missiles all over Tel Aviv, and you're saying, well, we had to fight them because then this missile that they struck us with is justification after the fact that we attacked them first. It's just ridiculous that these people are just batshit crazy. They're just insane. I mean, how is that so the justification for the attack that came earlier? So an attack comes Monday. They attack Iran Monday. I'm just hypothetical here. Iran bombs them back Wednesday. They didn't take a picture. They didn't show footage of the bomb on Wednesday and saying, see, this is why we had to attack them on Monday. Remember the presentation, the West is always the victim? This is it right here. Okay. And, Netanyahu, Iran will have a nuclear weapon by tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then tomorrow never comes. Right. He's been saying this for 30 something years. He's been saying this my whole life, damn near. I love that cartoon. And this was an interesting tweet, too. Summary of the Ynet report that's going around. The U.S. planned for a 4 to 5 day operation and would awaken the Iranian and that would weaken the Iranian negotiation position, allowing a deal more favorable to the U.S. Yesterday, the U.S. reached out to Tehran through Italian mediators requesting a ceasefire. The Iranians rejected this. Exactly. You don't get to just call time out now that you're running out of interceptors, now that this didn't work out the way you wanted it to. Nah, fuck that. We're going to keep fighting. The U.S. they did this in Ukraine too. Okay, we need a Minsk agreement whenever, the Ukrainians were on the ropes. Then they called for a second Minsk agreement. And then the third time, now they're trying to call for another one last year. Putin was like, nah, fuck that. We're going to keep advancing. Just shows how weak this empire is, And again, recall Trump's speech, right? Now, we heard Trump's rationale for going to war. All right. And here's NBC News normalizing regime change, asking who will be Iran's next leader, because they're beholden to the Zayos too. Now, let's listen to the Iranian foreign minister because he has some responses to a lot of this. So after you heard Trump declaring war and talking big shit, listen to what this anchor lady on NBC News had the audacity to ask the Iranian foreign minister. I mean, you have to hear this to believe it.
So for clarity, you said that your missiles cannot reach the United States by design, that you do not want to reach the United States, but you also said it would be necessary as a defensive vehicle that you could if necessary. So to be clear, are you committing that Iran is not and will not build missiles that would have the capability to reach the United States?
I can confirm, yes.
Sir, if that's a red line for you, why is attacking U.S. military bases abroad justified?
But because they are attacking us. They are U.S. military, installations, facilities, bases who are attacking us. We are under attack. Why don't you, recognize this fact? We are under the attack by U.S. by U.S. forces in the region. So we have every right to defend ourselves. And how to defend ourselves? We attacked, the U.S. bases. This is obvious. This is a very simple fact. And I hope that, and I'm sure that people would understand that. We are not the one who attacked Americans. We are only defending ourselves. So
she asked him, so the U.S. attacking Iran from various military bases around the Middle East. Iran is striking those bases back. And she asked, what's your justification for attacking U.S. bases? This is the brain rot in the American media class. A bunch of total fucking idiots to have the audacity to ask that question. So we're going to move on. We got a couple clips, one from Trump and then breaking points. I think they were pissed off. Well, let's listen to what Trump has to say first and then listen to their rebuttal.
36 hours. The United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead. This wretched and vile man had the blood of hundreds and even thousands of Americans on his hands and was responsible for the slaughter of countless thousands of innocent people all across many countries. Last night, all over Iran, the voices of the Iranian people could be heard cheering and celebrating in the streets when his death was announced. The entire military command is gone as well, and many of them want to surrender into saving their lives. They want immunity. They're calling by the thousands. Combat operations continue at this time in full force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved. We have very strong objectives. They could have done something 2 weeks ago, but they just couldn't get there. Earlier today, CENTCOM shared the news that 3 U.S. military service members have been killed in action. As one nation, we grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation, even as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives. We pray for the full recovery of the wounded and send our immense love and eternal gratitude to the families of the fallen. And sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is. Likely be more, but we'll do everything possible where that won't be the case. But America will avenge their deaths and deliver the most punishing blow to the terrorists who have waged war against basically civilization. They have waged war against civilization itself. Our resolve, and likewise that of Israel, has never been stronger. America is now, again, the richest, most powerful nation in the world by far. But the only reason we enjoy the quality of life that we do and the freedom and security is we have done things that others are unable to do. But it's because of warriors who are...
All right, I had enough of that. But just a couple of takeaways. So Trump is still talking like, they totally won this war. And actually now, way past 3 days, even today, he's talking big shit about like them winning and totally hiding real casualty numbers. But I just want to revisit also the calls to ask for a ceasefire, because these people, you killed the supreme leader, and he wasn't hiding either. They killed the supreme leader at his home during Ramadan. You know what I mean? And they wanted him dead. You know what I mean? They sent tons of missiles down there. They were going to make sure this man was deceased. But it doesn't really seem like they had a plan afterwards. You know, even as this started, they were pleading with the Iranians, please, we took out the leaders, so please, can you rise up and do something? They didn't have a plan. All this shit about, you know, ground forces, please. You would never invade Iran. American troops would get bodied, would get destroyed. I actually want them to do that. Just so the world can see how the paper tigerness, you know what I mean? That's why they won't do it, because they don't want to expose that. So talking about having the Kurds go in, this is all bullshit. They're just making up as they go along. They have no plan. This did not work out. So anyways, let's move on to this breaking points clip, and then we'll go to Pepe Escobar. I always like to hear what he has to say.
Disgusted with this administration, with so many of the people who I knew personally, who looked me in the face over many years, told us that this was things they believed. Joke's on me for believing them. And I'm really terrified about where this brings us, not just in terms of the region. Think about where we are. This country is now at war with Iran, embroiled in a full-blown regional conflict with no congressional authorization, no debate. How many times did we say over the last preceding years? 90% of Americans had no idea any of this was happening. Carrier strike groups that were on there were there. Many of them are waking up, and all they have is a Twitter video released by the president at 2 a.m. As of right now, the president is not scheduled to make any public remarks. That is how much contempt that they have for all of us, is that they don't have to explain their actions. They can launch this war completely of choice. Our Congress is a joke, absent for Ro Khanna. Everybody in the Democrat and the Republican Party who, you know, even remotely is upset about this is like, but what about the process? Will anybody think of the process and of the strategic end? There's no strategic end game. Trump said it. It's about regime change. How we avoid getting into a broader conflict, I have no idea. I truly have no idea how it is.
Because from the beginning, if you declare that the goal of the mission is for the government to collapse, and by the way, Voice of America, Persia, is up on air telling people to rise up against the regime and, you know, throw off the yoke of their oppression, blah, blah, blah. So if you don't achieve that, then you failed. And do you think that this president is just going to walk away and take that L? Of course he's not.
All right, so we'll move on to Pepe, one of my favorite journalists. So let's hear what he has to say. He's basically going to talk about, there's the caption right there. The U.S. wants to destroy Iran to control the Middle East energy exports, weaken BRICS, especially China, and enable Israel, to dominate West Asia. Basically the Greater Israel Project. This is what they want. So listen to Pepe right here.
This means blowing up BRICS from the inside, blowing up the Shanghai Cooperation Organization from the inside, blowing up the axis of resistance from the inside, blowing up global South resistance against the empire from the inside. So, you know, can you imagine? In terms of this fanatical mindset, this is beyond precious. So they had to go for it. Everything that is being said from Washington, from the Trump administration, by U.S. mainstream media, by the industrial military complex, by think tanks, by academia, by all that bunch of cockroaches in the whole system, our friend Ray McGovern qualifies as MISIMAT, the industrial military, congressional intelligence, media, academia, think tank complex. Everything coming from them is bullshit because they cannot address the main issue. And if you read Professor Michael Hudson for 5 minutes, it's all there in his article, as concisely as possible. They need to destroy Iran because they need to control everything in terms of energy exports from the Middle East. And West Asia, of course, that's the correct terminology. And of course, this is going to be horrible news for China. So this is a war against China again. This is a war against the corridors of the Chinese nuke roads that go through Iran. This is a war against the north-south transportation corridor, Russia, Iran, India. That's the theme of my documentary that, I think we talked about it previously, which is already online on the site of Press TV. Please, all of you, if you are tired of war, if you're desperate, you're angry, go to the Press TV website, click on the documentary, The Golden Corridor, and you're going to see one of the key reasons of this war as well. The empire cannot allow three top BRICS to have a connectivity corridor across Eurasia, bypassing the Suez Canal, and of course, bypassing US control. So there are zillions of reasons for this war. And of course, from the point of view of those infrahumans in Tel Aviv and around it, of course, it's their dream, because then they have their free road towards Eretz Israel, Greater Israel, something that, that stupid American ambassador Huckabee, he let the cat out of the bag. He was not supposed to say that, but he said it in the open. And now the whole planet now has confirmation coming from an American ambassador that what this bunch of infrahumans wants is Eretz Israel and control everything in West Asia. So take this as my very angry introduction, Nima. I could go on for a while. I am very, very angry for what's happening, because all of us, we knew this would happen. And all of us, now that we are right in the middle of it as independent analysts, we know why it happened. We know what we don't know, which is the auspicious aspect, is how it's going to develop and all the surprises along the way that will derail completely this absolutely ghastly and demented project of destabilizing West Asia as a whole.
You can always count on Pepe to give you the larger geopolitical implications. All right. Oh, poor baby. I'll miss you, but I need to go to Iran to kill kids like you. If I don't, then the people who rape kids like you might go to jail. That's exactly what it is. And check out this from the Western media. Always perpetually making themselves the victim and demonizing everybody else, right? So Iran says dozens killed in strike on school. So you see how it's broken down by the New York Times? So it casts doubt as Iran says, so, take this as a grain of salt. And then it says are killed in strike, given no responsibility. Who was the person that, or who is the entity that made the strike, right? Now, contrast it to Israel, and they state as fact 9 killed in Israeli city near Jerusalem after Iranian missile strike. They tell you who sent the missile. Won't tell you who sent the missile to kill the schoolgirls, though. This is how the New York Times manufactures consent. This is how bullshit Western media is. This is the dirty tricks that they use. Understand it and see through it. Okay, now let's get into some polling, and we'll go back to breaking points for this one because they had a good segment on that.
So you can imagine that being one example of why perhaps Americans are not feeling so excited about this administration at this point, let alone this war that we've been dragged into. But we've got some polling here now, early indications of support for this. Let's put D2 up on the screen. This is from Reuters, where their headline was just 1 in 4 Americans, 25% supports U.S. strikes on Iran. So you can see the numbers there. And of all adults, you've got about 27% in support. You've got 43% opposed. I want you guys to understand how crazy, and keep these numbers up on the screen, how crazy this is. I don't know if y'all have been watching cable news, but CNN and Fox in particular, oh my God, the pro-war propaganda is through the roof. Many have been saying it would be hard to see how CNN can get even worse under the Ellisons, but I'm sure they'll figure out how to manage that. Barry will rise to the occasion to make it even worse, but it is so bad. And in spite of that overwhelming war propaganda, you still have only 27 adults who are like yes to this. Even in the Republican Party, a majority supported 55%, only 13% outright opposed. We got a big swath there, 32% that are like, not sure. Democrats, only 7% support. I mean, I think they're all elected here in DC, apparently, all 7% of those Democrats that support this. And then with the independents, you've got 19% support. Let's put the next one up on the screen to see another poll. Here you go. This is from the AP. 21% only support it in this particular poll, and a near majority, 49% opposed. 30% say that they are not sure.
Yeah, so again, we don't have a democracy. Our government does not represent us. Most people did not want this war. They do not want to go to war. They did not see the purpose of this. They went anyway because our government is beholden to the ruling class. They're donors. They don't give a fuck about what the people think. You have no power, American citizens. Wake up, okay? Now let's listen to Scott Ritter. And here he's going to talk about how this is just an illegal war of aggression. I mean, we know that, but let's listen to what he has to say.
Aren't going to be staying in one place. They're going to be moving. Unless Israel controls the skies for 24 hours, they won't be able to interdict. This is a losing proposition for Israel. Iran was ready for this. And the important thing is that in being prepared for this, they apparently prepared in a way that didn't tip off their preparation to Israel and the United States. Because we would not have launched this strike unless we had a high degree of confidence that the targets we were hitting would be in fulfillment of the mission that we put forth. We wouldn't waste all of these extremely high value, very expensive precision munitions in the first wave of the attack just to strike empty buildings, because that, it appears, is what we hit. A bunch of empty buildings with a significant amount of collateral damage for Iranian civilians, but almost zero impact on the target sets that we're trying to eradicate. This is a war of choice. It's not a war of necessity, and therefore it makes it an illegal war of aggression. And I'll just pound this point home all over again because people hear that term and they roll their eyes. This is what we voted for, they said. You know, I don't really give a damn what you voted for. What I care about is the Constitution of the United States of America. And this war operates in total contravention of the Constitution, in total contravention of the United Nations Charter.
All right. And so next we'll have Jeffrey Sachs, one of my favorite professors. Now he's going to talk about the history, give you the historical context from the Shah to the overthrow of Mossadegh in 1953. Trump mentioned 1979 revolution, talking about, you know, our embassies. They don't talk about, but again, remember, go back to the West is always the victim. We talked about that, how the West always wants to start the clock where it can be the victim. So they always want to use 1979. They never want to use 1953, ever. Okay. So let's let Jeffrey Sachs, Dr. Sachs, give us some historical context for this conflict.
Was counted it as 1996, but the United States has been using every subterfuge, covert operation. It has been using assassinations, economic warfare, crushing the Iranian economy ever since. The Iranians have said all that time they don't want a nuclear weapon. Bibi Netanyahu, who is a psychopath, said in 1996 they're weeks away, days away, months away. And he's been saying that for 30 years. For all I know, he's been saying it for 40 years. He is a vulgar, blatant, genocidal liar. I hope I'm being clear. We're dealing with something absolutely dangerous in this world that is running our country. So it's extremely dangerous. The Iranians did not want a nuclear weapon. The religious leader who they just assassinated was the one that said, no nuclear weapons. It's against Islam. So kill him. It had nothing to do with nuclear weapons all this time. The Iranians reached out constantly to negotiate. And in 2015, they concluded an agreement with the United States, Britain, France, Russia, China, and Germany, the P5 countries plus one, called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And it put Iran strictly under UN supervision in the International Atomic Energy Agency. Bibi Netanyahu had a fit because he wanted to overthrow the government. He did not want peaceful relations with a non-nuclear Iran. So Donald Trump, who is a puppet of our CIA, Mossad, and Miriam Adelson and the rest, ripped up the JCPOA in 2018. That's the story. Then they bombed one of Iran's nuclear facilities. And by the way, during the period from 2015 to 2018, Iran stuck with the agreement, even though the United States cheated on the agreement that it signed because it was supposed to end the U.S. sanctions, which it did not do. Then Trump ripped it up. Then they began a campaign of assassinations. Then they began bombing Iran's nuclear facilities. And that's the story. They don't want an agreement. Last year, they negotiated, and then in the middle of the negotiations, bombed Iran. This year, again, they negotiated, and then bombed Iran. You might ask, why did Iran come back to the negotiating table this time after the falsity last time? I'll tell you why. It's a little strange. It's a little weird. But nobody behaves as badly as the United States, so it's very hard to calibrate when there is a government that says, we're negotiating, when they bring in a mediator, in this case, Oman, when the U.S. negotiators, Witkoff and Kushner, say, oh, we're making progress. It's hard for other people to calibrate the evil that's under it. This was a premeditated war, and the negotiations are a pretext. So this is what's happening. It's amazing. You don't see this anywhere else in the world. By the way, at the emergency meeting of the UN security that I attended on Saturday, you see how we're in the looking glass because one country after another attacked Iran for its violence. Even Bahrain called it unprovoked attack by Iran. Well, it's actually easy to do the scorecard. If your country hosts the U.S. military, first of all, it means that you also host the CIA. It means you are an occupied country. And so everyone that spoke against Iran is an occupied country by the United States. These are not independent countries. When we listen to Merz or to Macron or to the Danes or to the British, the U.S. military CIA is all over those countries and has been for decades. These are not independent voices. These are part of the vassal states.
All right. So next we're going to go back to Scott Ritter because he's just flat out saying the U.S. is going to lose this war. And he said that 2 to 3 days after it started. All right. So let's listen to Scott.
Showed insider information, for instance, when they strike a warehouse in a port facility in Qatar, that warehouse just happened to be the one that signed the contract last week with the Department of Defense to hold military equipment. They're sinking ships, striking ships. Now, they're paying a price. There's no doubt about it. I mean, this is a war being waged by two of the most sophisticated militaries in the world, Israel and the United States. And we are destroying things in Iran. But we're not destroying that which we think we're destroying. We're not getting the effect which we think we're getting. And all we're doing is expending ammunition that we don't have. And at some point in time, we are going to run out of ammunition, and the Iranians are not going to run out of missiles. And when that happens, we lost the war. We lost the war, actually, on the first 6 missiles that hit Iran, because those missiles hit Ali Khamenei. That was supposed to trigger regime collapse. Instead, it triggered the rise of the Islamic Republic. I don't wish my country harm. I don't wish any harm to American service members, but our president is a damn fool, and he's taken us down the path of defeat. And unfortunately, the United States is going to lose this war, and because it's an illegal war of aggression, perhaps it's one that we should lose. I'm just hopeful that we can bring this thing to an end with minimal loss of life, maximal penalty. I mean, I think by the time this is done, by the end of the week or so, the United States will suffer over $100 billion worth of infrastructure damage. And that's a good thing, because by destroying the American military infrastructure in the Middle East, we ensure that America won't come back. By demonstrating to the Gulf Arab states that America cannot provide a security shield, that we are a toothless paper tiger when it comes to actually defending people, they're going to be looking elsewhere for their security. And what that means is they're going to be seeking peace with Iran, not war with Iran.
What do you make of the story that 3 F-15Es were fighter jets were shot out of the sky on the...
All right. One thing that Scott said here that I found very interesting is that he's saying that the Iranians have really good intel. So, and a lot of people are saying that actually. So when we see them striking like the Burj Khalifa or the Burj Arab, what they're saying is they're actually striking U.S. personnel who left the bases and are staying in commercial hotels. And the Iranians got tipped off about it, and they started targeting them at the hotels, which is crazy. They got that kind of intel. So it looks like, and Garland Nixon talked about this too. It looks like, how the signals intelligence that the U.S. uses, and they rave about. Looks like that might be being used against them as well. So again, man, they don't have a monopoly on violence. They don't have a monopoly on. They don't have the biggest guns anymore. That's how white people took over the whole world. They had guns, and then they went and dominated everybody. And then they told themselves, we're great, but we were able to do this because we're so great and we're God's chosen people. No, bitch, you just had guns. Okay. So now reality is setting in. Now they don't have the biggest guns. They don't have the biggest missiles. Now people got hypersonic missiles that they don't have. And now they're like, oh shit, it's really destroying their psyche now. Right. Because that inferiority complex that masquerades as a superiority complex is now shattering, and there's nothing they can do about it. So anyways, let's listen to Marco Rubio, because he tells you exactly why this war started. And it started because Israel told the United States to do it. Okay. Again, this is not a democracy. Most people don't want this, but we don't get a say. All right. So let's listen to Marco Rubio.
Just Congress actually, and is the president this Congress not prevail? Can you tell lawmakers that they're in the next?
And we believe they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. And we were not going to sit there and absorb a blow before we responded, because the Department of War assessed that if we did that, if we waited for them to hit us first after they were attacked, and by someone else, Israel attacked them, they hit us first, and we waited for them to hit us, we would suffer more casualties and more deaths. We went proactively in a defensive way to prevent them from inflicting higher damage. Had we not done so, there would have been hearings on Capitol Hill about how we knew that this was going to happen, and we didn't act preemptively to prevent more casualties and more loss of life.
So there you have it. And like I said, that's not a quote down there. We attacked Iran because Israel said so, but basically that's what he's saying. So basically we had to attack Iran because if Israel attacked them, they would have attacked us. So therefore, to preempt their attack, we had to attack them, because otherwise more servicemen would die. It's all hypotheticals. It's all bullshit. So he's basically saying we did a preemptive defensive strike. So even though we hit them first, we're being defensive. Just like the UK, like they're going over to Cyprus and doing all this because we have to protect our assets. We're doing defensive missions. The West is always the victim. They're always under attack and always the ones defending themselves. Like, you just have to be an idiot to believe this dumbass shit. So now the Europeans are getting into the action. So Emmanuel Macron describes U.S. and Israeli strikes against Iran as illegal, setting France on a collision course with Donald Trump. You're right. Don't believe the bullshit. The Europeans are stooges. They do whatever Washington tells them to do. So here's what's really going on. Joint statement by the leaders of France, Germany, and the United Kingdom on the indiscriminate Iran attacks on countries in the region. So this was March 1st. And I think this is the same day that the Telegraph reported this over here about Macron and Trump being on a collision course. Yeah, all right, bullshit. But basically what the Europeans said in this joint statement, and look at the highlighted, we will take steps to defend our interests and those of our allies in the region, potentially through enabling necessary, proportionate defensive actions to destroy Iran's capabilities. So we're going to take defensive action to destroy Iran's capabilities, which means you're going to do offensive actions to take them out, right? You see the doublespeak? We are living in an Orwellian Truman Show. All right. And then it says we have agreed to work together with the United States and allies in the region on this matter. The Europeans are broke. They have no energy. They're just masquerading as if they're like still relevant. Putin cut all their energy off. You're about to see the Europeans go back to a farming society, and I'm here for it after all that colonizing shit y'all did. All right, so we got some other people. John Mearsheimer, he was on Judge Napolitano. He had some good stuff to say, and so did Max Blumenthal. So let's look at these clips next. Let's first start off with Dr. Mearsheimer.
I think. But I would note that the Israelis tried to trap Joe Biden into going to war against Iran twice in 2024. You remember in April of that year, they attacked the Iranian embassy in Syria, in Damascus. And then in October, they attacked inside of Tehran. They killed the Palestinian leader in Tehran. And the end result of both of those Israeli attacks was that you had an exchange, a missile exchange between both Israel and Iran. And the Israelis wanted to pull us into that war. They wanted to pull the Biden administration in. And the Biden administration did not take the bait. We stayed out. We helped defend Israel when the Iranians attacked Israel. And the missile exchanges between the two countries were taking place. But the Biden administration was smart enough not to get involved in attacking Iran itself. And then you have the Trump administration, which has now twice gotten involved in attacking Iran itself, not simply defending Israel. You remember in the 12-day war in June of 2025, that's last year, we on June 22nd bombed Iran. And in this case, we're now involved in a full-scale bombing campaign against Iran. So the point I would make to you is that although the Biden administration helped defend Israel in 2024, it did not go to war, although the Israelis wanted to drag us into war.
So, Dr. Mearsheimer also agrees that, Israel dragged us into this. And it's pretty obvious when you look at it. So let's listen to what...
He said, we have chairmen, we have generals. Why don't you go ask those guys? Well, actually, the chairman is against this war. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Pentagon, General Dan Kane, is against this war. And he went out to the whole mainstream press before Trump launched the attack because he knew it was coming. And he said, this is going to be a disaster. And he was speaking purely from the point of view of military strategy and procurement, because he understood that what is happening right now, where the U.S. is moving THAAD anti-missile batteries from South Korea, repositioning its entire arsenal to defend Israel, would have to happen because they would run out of munitions by the end of this week. The U.S. is about to run out of munitions to defend the apartheid colony of Israel, and it's embarrassing for the Pentagon. They're leaking all over the place. I expect resignation soon, and they're under the control of this dry, drunk DUI hire, Pete Hegseth, who can't even explain the mission as U.S. service members die. This is a catastrophe. Donald Trump was sold on this by Lindsey Graham, who is a vehicle for Israeli foreign influence and is a traitor to America and a traitor to humanity. And he was pressured on this and pushed into this by Zionist-controlled Murdoch media with the idea that all he needed to do is carry out limited strikes. There would be these spectacular AI-controlled assassinations of Iranian leadership, and then the Iranian people would rise up.
Yeah. So, again, they didn't have a plan. And the fact that they are running out of missiles, with the same thing that they said they accused the Russians of doing in Ukraine, it's just peak. Again, every accusation is a confession. And I wrote an article a long time ago about how the West always projects its image on its enemies. Does it all the time. So next, we're going to talk about breaking points and how, again, and they mentioned before, how CNN and Fox News' coverage of this is totally, completely indistinguishable. Okay. Breaking points to the segment on MSN cheerleading this. So let's listen to what they had to say here.
He's the one who's on CNN all the time. Now he's on Stephen Colbert. I mean, this is the level of propaganda that we're all dealing with. It's craziness.
Let's put E6 up on the screen. This is Scott Jennings, who's, of course, the resident Republican over at CNN. So he's got two sirens here. He says, senior Trump administration officials tell me the credible intelligence indicated Iran planned preemptive missile strikes against U.S. military targets in the region and against civilian targets as well. Failure to act would have resulted in mass U.S. casualties. Yeah. So, this is really credible information when senior officials, rather than briefing Congress or planning this with a credible media source, leak it to Scott Jennings so that he can tweet it out. And sure enough, immediately you had everyone from Ted Cruz, the military, the people themselves who went and briefed Congress saying, yeah, no, this is not true. There were no preemptive attacks. And now, of course, we've got Marco Rubio laying out this new tale about how, well, technically there sort of were preemptive attacks if Israel struck them first, which we thought they were going to strike them first, and that put us at risk. I guess that's their definition of, preemptive, that we're preempting Israel, putting our troops in danger is the news story.
Is CNN going to have this guy on again? I mean, look at this.
It's lolies all the time on their airwaves, and they just keep having them back.
It's all theater. It's all a game, to all of these people. If you get a story, like, here's the thing. You can have any opinion that you want, literally any. I don't care. I'll never say that you shouldn't be allowed on the air. But that is literally bullshit whenever it comes, and it's laundered propaganda from the government. Does CNN have any standard to allow this up on their air? Because he is doing this under their auspices, repeating these types of talking points. And so, again, it's not an opinion. This is a literal fact that he's trying to presuppose onto the minds of the American public, which is a complete lie.
I can tell you, if someone came on our program and just routinely lied, we would not have back someone on the air who's just trying to lie to our audience all the time.
Why? What is the purpose of that? It's not a game. It's not fun.
They like they like the fights, they like the debates, they like that circus. And so
we'll fight and debate if we think there's a purpose to it, but this is literally a purpose for the actual, supposed entertainment value. But this is the ultimate reduction of the mainstream media, where even war and peace lies, where lives are at stake. The lives of American service members, Iranians, Israelis, Americans are living in the entire Gulf. Even that is reduced to entertainment. This is why I hate these people so much. By the way, speaking of hate, Van Jones, Mr. Reasonable. Here's Mr. Reasonable, Van Jones, singing the praises of Reza Pahlavi, the fail son, who will be the next monarch of Iran. Take a listen.
Recently, you saw millions of people come out of their homes protesting, demanding a new regime. They were chanting the name of Reza Pahlavi. Who is Reza Pahlavi? He is actually the son of someone who's known as the Shah of Iran. He doesn't want to come home as a ruler like his father. He wants to come home as a healer. He wants to come home as what's called a transitional figure, to give the people of Iran a fair chance to come up with a new government for themselves that is based not on theocracy like they have right now, or a monarchy like they had under his father, but a true democracy. But why should you care about Reza Pahlavi? If Iran were suddenly to be ruled by someone who believes in democracy, believes in rule of law, believes in women's rights, believes in fairness to everyone, suddenly the entire region of the Middle East changes overnight, and the Iranian people get a chance to step forward as partners to the world again. Did you know as partners to the world again?
Yeah, this is what counts now for analysis. They were chanting his name. Maybe some people were. Maybe a few Mossad people in the crowd were, for sure. This guy has no support out of Los Angeles and here in Georgetown and Potomac, Maryland.
Didn't Trump say something about him?
Yeah, even he was like, he doesn't have that much support, except, it's true. That's true. And then that lady with the afro who's on TV. That's it. It's ridiculous. And this is honestly, Ahmed Chalabi had more of a chance of leading Iraq than this guy does of leading Iraq. A democratic transition. This guy has not even said one word about any of the people he supposedly wants to lead who are dead. Not one word. So he's going to lead them? Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm sure that's going to work out.
One thing that really...
Van Jones is such a slave to his Zio masters. I mean, it's just embarrassing, that guy. And I remember I saw clips of him, in college doing, real community activism. Everybody sells out to that dollar, man, especially when you get up to that level. You know what I'm saying? You don't have much integrity once you get up to the federal government level, or you get into corporate media. You just don't. Politico. Trump is running out of time to sell his rationale for Iran war. Yeah, and this, I don't remember when this was published, but it's long gone now. All they can do now is just lie, and hope shit sticks. CIA working on arm Kurdish forces to spark uprising in Iran. Not happening. And how many times the Kurds going to get played? The Kurds stay bending over, spreading cheeks for the Western imperialists, and they always get played at the end of it and always get hung out to dry. How long y'all going to keep getting used, Kurds? Come on. Again, lawmakers anticipate Trump will seek emergency funding for open-ended Iran war. Be interesting to see everybody fund this. Everybody flock to it, because foreign policy is bipartisan. They all support war because their donors demand it. Okay. Here's another headline. This one by Channel 4. War in Europe. Russia invades Ukraine. Okay. But on March 3rd, 2026, Israeli troops cross into Lebanon amid fears of a wider war. One invades, one just crosses into. You see how they manufacture consent and make the West the victim and soften the language to make them seem like they have the best intentions and that they're doing things out of the goodness and kindness of their hearts. Here's a tweet from Trita Parsi. This is it looks like they're using AI to bomb places in Tehran. So he says similarities between Israelis bombing of Gaza and Tehran are growing stronger. In both cases, it appears Israel is using AI without any human oversight. For instance, Israel has bombed a park in Tehran called Police Park. It has nothing to do with the police because they were built bombing police stations because they're trying to really disrupt all civil society in Iran. They don't give a fuck about the Iranian people. They don't give a fuck about Iran. They just want those people dead, and they want somebody in power that they choose, and they want to just steal all of Iran's resources and hydrocarbons. This is what this is all about. That's the situation they had during the Shah, and then he was kicked out, or he was voted out, and then they reinstalled him because that's the type of relationship that they want with these countries. They want them to bend the knee and just be slaves for white supremacy. That's all they want them to do. Send all your resources to us. It appears the AI identified it as a target since AI is bombing all government-related buildings. No one in Israel bothered to check and find out if it was just a park. Analysis suggests school was hit amid U.S. strikes on Iranian naval base. On February 28th, the February 28th school strike in Manab, which killed dozens, including children, appears to have been part of an attack on an adjacent naval base in southern Iran, where officials said U.S. forces were operating. So they killed little girls. And I don't think it was an accident. I don't think they were just trying to target they could have been just trying to target the military compound. But I think after seeing since October 7th, them genocide little kids all over my feed on TikTok back before it was owned it got bought out by the Zionists. Yes, I do believe that they targeted that little girl's school on purpose. That is consistent with the IDFification of the U.S. military. Here's Mertz. Iran should not be protected by international law, says a white European who's the arbiter of who gets protection under international law. These people think they're the masters of the universe, right? I can't wait for this rude awakening. I cannot wait. So German Chancellor positions himself as Trump's closest European ally in condemning Tehran. Okay, bro. So let's go back to the big purple party, and I'm going to have a bigger discussion about one big purple party. Probably going to have a presentation just on that. But I want to show you guys a couple harpies named Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris who are all in on bombing Iran. So I don't want to hear no shit about, they would have been this egalitarian and they would have had no more wars and we would have been all fine with the Democrats. Fuck out of here. They're just as beholden to the Zio lobbyists in the PDF steamed class as the Republicans. All right. So let's listen to what Hillary and Kamala have to say. All right. One big purple party.
I think that is a very good signal that there is beginning to be a better understanding, both by the president and the people around him, as well as by the leaders of our European allies, that there can be common ground amongst us. And the kind of dismissiveness that we saw in the first Trump administration has been replaced by a much more obvious working relationship to the good of European security, transatlantic security, and hopefully Ukrainian security. So I'm actually encouraged. I think all of that.
Hillary Clinton is a Trump supporter now. She's glazing this guy. He's better now after his, during his first term, but his second term, he's much better. He's doing this, he's doing that. One big purple party. Okay. Where does Kamala stand on Iran? Of course, she's going to repeat her Israeli intelligence talking points because she has no choice. That's what you do when you get into that position. Okay.
Country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands. Okay. This attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles. What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
So if you have proof that Iran is building a nuclear weapon, would you take military action?
I'm not going to talk about hypotheticals at this moment.
All right, so let's go to the next clip, and this is Hillary again, and this is a little bit more straightforward.
I want the Iranians to know that if I'm the president, we will attack Iran. Whatever stage of development they might be in their nuclear weapons program in the next 10 years, during which they might foolishly consider launching an attack on Israel, we would be able to totally obliterate them. That's a terrible thing to say, but those people who run Iran need to understand that, because that perhaps will deter them from doing something that would be reckless, foolish, and tragic.
So All right, got a couple more clips for you. But as you can see there, Hillary, if I'm president, I will attack Iran. So this is bipartisan. There's no disputing it, okay? Come on, y'all. So we got 3 clips here, and I think this is going to be about. So the first one, Trump tells oil ships to show some guts. And then we're going to have Trump's response to the bombing of that little girl's school, okay? First, who he assigned blame to, and then his obvious and like really embarrassing backtrack. So let's start with the first clip.
On that, I just think about every time this happens and people start, the gas prices. My dad pulls out the ration coupon book from World War II and tells me how my granddaddy's Chevy dealership just went poof overnight, didn't get it back, lost his business. It just went goodbye because all of the auto manufacturing was redirected toward wartime manufacturing. So let's pull our trousers up, shall we?
Yeah, so that's Fox News, like trying to tell the American people, like, look, you're going to have some short-term discomfort. Just pull your trousers up, okay? Shut up and just take it, you know? Just support the president, support the war. That's where we're at now with this, because they know it's a disaster. So, you know, they all got the talking memo from on high, and this is what you have to say.
Did the United States bomb a girls' elementary school in southern Iran on the first day of the war and kill 175 people?
Based on what I've seen, that was done by Iran.
Is that true, Mr. Hickson? It was Iran who did that. We're certainly investigating. Still investigating.
But the only side that targets civilians is Iran. We think it was done. We think it was done by Iran. Because they're very inaccurate, as you know, with their munitions. They have no accuracy whatsoever. It was done by Iran.
Now watch this backtrack.
You just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Even your defense secretary wouldn't say that when he was asked, standing over your shoulder on your plane on Saturday. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that I was told is under investigation. But tomahawks are used by others, as you know. Numerous other nations have tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report.
Wow. Said it with his whole chest before, and even Heck said didn't commit to it. All right, he just said something amorphous. Well, we're looking into it, but the only people who targeted civilians are the Iranians. You can say that as an American. It's just like beyond ridiculous to me. So just like Lindsey Graham says he wants to fight to the last Ukrainian, we got Bibi here wanting to fight to the last American. All right, so check out this clip.
Boots on the ground.
I would not exclude it for those reasons or other, but we'll have to see how it goes forward.
And will that include Israeli boots on the ground, do you think?
I exclude nothing. We've been waiting for 47 years, and we came to a point that every necessary means should be taken in order to achieve our goals.
What we're seeing from...
Wow, that's Benny Gantz basically saying, like, we've been waiting so long to kick off this greater Israel project, and he's like, this is our chance. And we're going to go for it. Right. And I like what Max said. Every U.S. service member needs to see this to understand who's calling the shots. Right. Benny Gantz declares that he won't rule out American boots on the ground. Who is really running this country? It ain't us, American people. And then second, boots on the ground. Y'all really trying to invade Iran? Look at that terrain. You got a mountain chain at the north of the north that runs along the north of the country's borders. You have a mountain chain, I think that's the Agros Mountains, that runs along the west and south of the country. You have mountainous terrains in the east. You have deserts that you got to trek through before you get to that central plateau. It kind of reminds me of Ethiopia a lot in the way the geography has that central plateau. Good luck invading that shit, U.S. military. You didn't do good in Afghanistan. You're going to do better here. A country that's like 3 times the size of Texas. A country that's the size of Alaska. Get the fuck out of here. Go in there if you want to and go ahead and get bodied, paper tiger. A $1.5 trillion paper tiger. Go ahead if you want to. Breaking. Iran responds to Trump's unconditional surrender demand. Iran will not be controlled by the Epstein gang. Hell yeah. Here's another clip from Dr. Saeed Marandi. Sorry, but let me preface this because he's going to cook Piers Morgan here. Okay, so just pay attention to this one.
We are independent and that
we do not accept the Epstein class that rapes and murders little kids. We don't accept them murdering our kids. We will not allow your regime to kill our kids and get away with it. Your problem is that we are independent and that we do not accept the Epstein class that rapes and murders little kids. We don't accept them murdering our kids. We will not allow your regime to kill our kids and get away with it.
Not much to say there. Okay. So we're about to wrap up. So as we wrap up, I want to go back to the foreign minister, the Iranian foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi. And he said straight up on NBC News, we don't want a ceasefire. And if American troops come into our country, we going to fucking body them. That's what he said. He said, we are waiting for him. Watch what the fuck happened to him. And it's not that I got people in the military. I have family in the military. I come from a military family. But I don't support wars of choice, and I do not support wars of aggression. If that's what you're doing, too bad for you. Get the fuck out. You don't want to go fight and die for the Zios? Get the fuck out. Otherwise, whatever happens, happens. I support resistance. I don't support colonizers. Okay? So let's go with these two clips from the Iranian foreign minister, and then we'll wrap. So this is in reference to a ceasefire.
You're saying Iran does not want a ceasefire.
We are not asking for a ceasefire. And we don't see any reason why we should negotiate with the US when we negotiated with them twice, and every time they attacked us at the middle of negotiations. So there is no request for a ceasefire by us, and there is no request for the negotiation with the US from us. We never sent any messages to them. So you can see the quality of our missiles, how much they are upgraded after the last war, because we learned lots of lessons. And we are prepared for any other eventuality, even a ground invasion.
Major escalation.
All right, and this is my favorite clip. All right, because he basically said, if any American troops come in here, watch what the fuck happened to them. All right, so listen to what he said.
President Trump has not ruled out boots on the ground in Iran. Are you afraid of a U.S. invasion in your country?
No, we are waiting for them.
You are waiting for the U.S. military to invade the ground troops?
Yes, because we are confident that we can confront them, and that would be a big disaster for them.
Boom. There you got it. There you have it. Invade somebody else's country trying to take their sovereignty if you want to. Watch what the fuck happened to you. I know those American troops are probably going to be thinking, we're fighting for freedom. We're fighting for democracy. Shut the fuck up, brainwashed idiot. No, you're not. Get the fuck out of the military. Stop fighting these white supremacist PDF steam wars. So this is part 4 of I Threw a Rock in Iran. So it looks like there'll be more parts to this. So we'll see what happens as time goes on. But in terms of predictions, I don't know what's going to happen. I totally expect the U.S. or Israel to use a nuke. They're desperate. The white supremacists. Also, the grand chessboard strategy is falling apart right now, which is like the West needs to control all of Eurasia and the energy resources that are in that area. They hit a force that they are not going to be able to dominate. This is a conventional war, and it's going to be a war of attrition, and Iran is in it for the long haul. How long can this overextended empire with munitions that cost millions of dollars hold out? We'll find out soon. Anyways, like, share, subscribe. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you in the next one.